why is my sister so pretty and why am I not so pretty? And why is she Gauri and why am I so Kali?
It is born. The first thing they say check the gender of the child. Next, fair or is he dark?
New Pond's White Beauty, now with lycopene, gives your skin a
Discover Fair and Lovely
pinkish
multivitamin
whitening.
with 4 essential vitamins, B3, E,
Colorism is an issue that has been around since the dawn of time in several different communities and several different races. In this video, I thought I'd discuss this long-held prejudice and how it came about, and how this prejudice among the public constantly feeds the media and what we see portrayed on screen, which in hand influences the public and keeps this issue very much alive. The subtle and not so subtle ways that this is prevalent in media and in communities and people around me that I saw growing up has always been something that has interested me and something that I wanted to probe deeper into. So I decided to take a few moments reaching into the matter and sharing some of what I've learned with you today. I refrain from calling this a deep dive because this is my first video essay and there's only as deep as you can go with minimal to no experience with something, but I hope you enjoy this video. Now, what exactly is colorism? Colorism, also called shadism, is a term believed to be first coined by writer Alice Walker in her 1983 book In Search of Our Mother's Garden, Womanist Prose, where she defines it as prejudicial or preferential treatment of same-race people based solely on the color of their skin. So basically, colorism is discrimination, especially against individuals with darker skin tone, typically among people of the same ethnic or racial group. This prejudice can also be applied towards lighter-skinned people, which is known as reverse colorism. But in this video, I'll be focusing more on the more prevalent form of colorism, at least in India, is colorism towards those of darker skin. Colorism, unlike racism, is most of the times inter-race rather than inter-race, and I think thus is a lot more subtle and even normalized because it may seem less jarring at first glance. Colorist ideologies have in the past and continue to manifest themselves in the psychology of people and continue to have a very strong connection with our ideas of beauty, wealth, ethics, and opportunity. For this video, I'll be focusing on India. So I'm zooming slightly outwards. Southeast Asia is notorious for its colorist ideologies, very prominent in its beauty industries, the media that it produces, and the ideologies held and almost ingrained in several of its people and communities. Colorism is very prevalent throughout the history of Asia. Jade white skin in Korea is known to have been the ideal as far as back as the Joseon era. Japan's preference for lighter skin dates way back to the Edo period, where we had the trend for women to whiten their face using rice powder, which at that time was considered a moral duty. Later on, this idea was carried along to the Nara period, where court ladies of Japan applied a lot of white powder on their face to again appear paler. However, this is slightly less concerning than the way women chose to whiten themselves in China to maintain their milk white complexion, where they consistently swallowed powdered pearls, really taking "you are what you eat" to heart. Even today, we can see skin whitening cream industries continuing to boom in the Southeast Asian countries, and the beauty ideals, especially for example in K-pop stars, very much having very light skin. Now, zooming in to India, which is my main focus in this video. Now, I think India's colorist ideologies can very succinctly be expressed in this picture, which I think went viral a few years back, where we see a fair-skinned girl who looks Caucasian being portrayed as beautiful, while an Indian girl with darker skin being portrayed as ugly. But this obviously, like most things and most prejudices, dates way back. The colorist ideas can said to have dated way back in the history of India. The Mughals ruled over the Indian people for over 2 centuries, and while there isn't much evidence for them enforcing any sort of colorist ideologies or discrimination according to color, the Mughals were a light-skinned and quite homogeneous race of people, and something that this starts the association of lighter skin with the royalty, elitism, class, and privilege. This carried on to the very, very notorious caste system. A later interpretation of the Varna system, where Varna means color, stated that skin color was a distinguishing factor when it came to distinguishing people among castes, with the highest caste of Brahmins having lighter skin and the lowest caste, Shudras, having black or dark skin. The Hindi social hierarchy emphasized that those in higher caste typically had lighter skin and those in the lower class had darker skin. We even see this in the terminology of how members of the lower class are described. Members of the lower class, Dalits, are also called untouchables, which is quite self-explanatory, where untouchables are a member of the lower caste Hindu group or a person outside the caste system, contact with whom is traditionally held to defile members of higher castes. And from this, I think also the association of caste and thus dark skin with cleanliness or purity, as even touching them sort of implies that you'd be losing some of your purity, some of your cleanliness, and some of your privilege and prestige that comes with having lighter skin, and they're almost too ugly or too impure to touch. This idea also seemed to be regurgitated in ancient Indian times when India was a rural agricultural society. So the majority of the labor was outside, where the members of the lower caste or farmers worked outside under the sun and thus obviously had darker skin compared to the landowners or those that were richer or in higher castes who stayed inside and spent most of the time in their homes and temples, and thus obviously were naturally lighter skinned. Also during these times, occupational migration as well as intercaste marriage was not very common and prohibited as well. So when someone viewed someone of the lower caste, they sort of assumed that this person would be in the lower class forever. Obviously, this doesn't justify by not respecting them, but it also seemed to feed into this idea that someone who was born into a lower caste family would stay in this family forever, and there was absolutely no possible way that they could leave these prejudices that were held against to move to a higher class or move to a richer circumstance. And it was almost like they were stuck there forever just because of how the society was structured. And while the caste system's legality was altered in 1948, this practice is still common in many parts of the country, with caste-based violence quite common. And along with this, obviously would be amiss without discussing colonialism. Now, while the idea of the caste system was already in place, the British came and sort of exasperated the situation tenfold and sort of took massive advantage of this. They did this by favoring lighter-skinned people for administrative positions and other prominent social positions. These lighter-skinned Indians were given opportunities to work in government, had greater access to education, were treated better by the ruling English. We even had the situation where black Indians were prohibited from entering restaurants and educational institutions, and just in general, the British were considered to be more affluent and had a greater status and greater privileges in British India. And as they were white, this further fed into the association that lighter skin tone meant greater privilege and greater advantages in society. In post-colonial India, after the British had left, those in charge still benefited from colorism. They continued to perpetuate the belief system where they prioritized lighter-skinned Indians for education, government work, and media representation. And I think we can still see the effects of this to this day. And one great example of this is we have some of the gods like Vishnu and Shiva who are originally written as having black skin, but in modern interpretations and renditions and portrayals of these gods, we see that they are almost exclusively drawn or painted as having blue skin, or typically light blue skin rather than black, while also maintaining very typical Aryan white facial features. And gods that were not depicted as having darker skin are just painted and depicted as white, as having white skin, or barring the few very rare images where we see them having yellow skin. And with gods being the in religious communities image of what an ideal entity should look like or should be like, this very much feeds into the idea of lighter skin being associated with beauty and power and privilege, etc. So with India's very long history of associating lighter skin tone with privilege, with opportunity, with having more status and power in society, it seems almost inevitable that the remnants of these ideologies still remain in society, and that these ideas are still perpetuated in the media that we still consume. Now, colorism and racism in US media and Hollywood is a whole other ballgame and deserves a video of its own. So I will not be discussing that in this video. Definitely comment down below if that's something you're interested in seeing, because I'd love to make a video. Maybe I'm more interested in, at least for this video, is colorism in Bollywood. Bollywood is quite notorious for consistently representing characters, especially actors and actresses who take part in lead roles, as being lighter skinned. Several foreign actresses have been cast in main roles as well as in background characters despite lack of film experience or knowledge in Hindi, because of their whiteness and the aesthetic appeal that Bollywood has for fairer skinned people. Oftentimes with magazine covers and photo shoots, Bollywood actresses are photoshopped to look lighter if their skin tone isn't already white enough. And while generally fair-skinned actors are chosen for the films, if they do not meet the degree of lightness of director and producer's desires, they are pressured into using fairness creams and makeup to lighten up their skin. In 2013, actress Nanditi Das, who helped relaunch Dark is Beautiful campaign to promote healthier representation and attitudes of dark-skinned people, she mentioned that she had lost several roles because of her refusal to whiten her skin. Priyanka Chopra, despite winning the title of Miss World, was not considered beautiful enough to appear in mainstream media without lightening her skin. In fact, quite ironically, now that Priyanka Chopra is in Hollywood, you can actually see her skin tone is actually so much darker, and it's actually her normal healthy skin tone, which kind of shows you how much she had to lighten her skin to conform into Bollywood's beauty standards. And when a dark skin actor is hired, especially in North Indian films, they're generally portrayed as the villain, which is especially prevalent in men. For example, we have Nawazuddin, who was consistently portrayed as like villains. Darker skin tones and actors are often portrayed as villains, seducers, scoundrels, and while it's completely fine to cast them as these roles, the consistency of this and this trend does portray the message that darker skin tone seems to convey darker morality. Another quite ironic and almost funny example of colorism is in the blockbuster film Chennai Express that came out in 2013. We have the film starring two main roles, Shah Rukh Khan and Deepika Padukone, are two very light-skinned actors. And while this predominantly takes place in the South Indian state of Tamil Nadu, which South India is quite known for having people of darker skin tone, we see that in this comedy, the villains and buffoons and mobsters are all displayed with having darker skin tones, which is quite ironic considering they're all supposed to be cousins of Deepika Padukone's character. So they're supposed to be related and they're supposed to have the same skin tone, but apparently they don't, because Deepika Padukone's character is a nice character and these characters are not nice. So that must mean that they have darker skin. We also have another trend of darker skin characters exclusively portraying members of the lower class or Muslim or indigenous people, which again, nothing wrong with portraying these people as having darker skin. The issue is just when we have the association of darker skin with lower class. Indigenous people are especially marginalized group in India, but they represent only 9% of the media portrayal, and when they are portrayed, they are often portrayed, first of all, more importantly, having darker skin, and alongside that being portrayed as savages, primitive and ignorant. Once again showcasing this underlying subconscious prejudice that these producers and directors have of having dark skin with ignorance and being savages and unruly. For example, 2015's film The Messenger presents its indigenous people as devils that must be transformed into humans. And while several of these directors and producers sort of disagree with the idea that they are colorist or even racist, they basically deny this and just claim that people generally want to see lighter skinned actors, that's just their preference, which again, going back to the idea that while people's ideas can fuel what we see on screen and in media, it also goes the other way. And I think while consistently choosing what films will be blockbuster hits because they have lighter skin actors, instead of considering the actual moral and ethics that goes into casting people and actually trying to actively promote diversity in skin tones, we're also in hand feeding and keeping these colorist ideologies alive. Also see these colorist ideologies taking a toll on the actors and actresses of Bollywood. For example, we have Kajol, who was first introduced in the industry as a dusky Bollywood rebel, and her skin tone, while was quite noticeable and jarring to people when it shouldn't be, was quite celebrated, and her new was quite celebrated because to be a love interest as a darker skinned actress was quite unheard of and was quite new, and a lot of people were actually enjoying it. However, after 5 years, when she played the lead in Dilwale in 2010, she received harsh criticism because people believed that she was several shades lighter, that she had used some sort of lightning cream or done some sort of procedure on herself. We also have Rekha, quite a celebrated Bollywood actress, who had in an interview called herself the ugly duckling of Hindi films because of her dark complexion and South Indian features. In fact, in a premiere interview, one of her co-stars, Shashi Kapoor, had mocked her appearance and mocked her dark skin tone and weight, saying that she wouldn't be able to make it in the industry because of it, saying that he was worried for her in surviving in the industry with these features. And Rekha is another actress who has been over the years accused of, or I'd say just suspected of using lightening cream or having certain procedures to lighten her skin tone, which are all alleged, by the way, but most people find several pieces of evidence that this is the case. And along with this, if you just search up like actresses, Bollywood actresses, skin lightening, like you'll see several different websites with different actresses who these websites claim to have lightened their skin tone, and this being a constant debate and a constant discussion around a lot of actresses. And we also have, obviously, notoriously, some of these actresses endorsing skin whitening creams, skin whitening companies, and starring in their advertisements, being ambassadors for these companies. The next aspect of colorism in Bollywood is brownface, and along which comes the idea that you need to be fair-skinned in Bollywood even to play a darker skin role. Bollywood actors and actresses have a long history of choosing to darken their complexion for roles that are meant to portray darker skinned people. The term brownfacing is reminiscent to blackface, which started in the 1920s by white Hollywood stars to mimic black music and dancing. And while blackface has a lot darker history than brownface, brownface in itself is very insidious and harmful to the people that these stars use brownface to be portraying. Brownface dates back as far back to the 50s, when the veteran actor Sunil Dutt, playing Birju, an angry rebellious farmer in the classic movie Mother India, appeared in the movie to be having a darker skin tone than his actual skin tone, which starts this long history of us using lighter skin actors to portray these characters rather than actually employing darker skin actors to do this. We have several instances of brownface, and just to mention a couple, in Kurna's Bala, we have a storyline which depicts the main character talking about the color of his skin and discrimination, all while being played by actress Bhumi Pednekar, who darkened her skin tone for the role. In the show The Family Man, the main antagonist is starred by Samantha Akkineni, a Tamilian actor. She's shown several skin tones darker than her actual skin tone. Other examples of brownface are Alia Bhatt, when she played a Bihari migrant worker who was forced into prostitution in the movie Uttar Punjab. We have Ranveer Singh, who plays an impoverished man who lives in the slums of Mumbai in his movie Gully Boy. In the movie Super 30, we have Hrithik Roshan, who acts as a lower caste and lower class mathematics educator. Several viewers criticize his brown face and his ridiculously unnatural complexion and accent, which many thought was a way of him appropriating the Bihari community. In the 2020 film Coolie Number 1, Varun Dhawan appeared slightly brown face in promotional posters. And the irony is that some of these movies tend to depict the lives of those who are impoverished or less privileged, and thus give the impression of being quite woke movies, discussing colorist issues that discrimination or vast economical differences that are prevalent in India and should be discussed. But the way they go about doing that is inherently colorist, where they instead choose to rob the opportunity of these roles from a darker skin actor and give it to a lighter skinned person, sort of defeating the purpose in the first place. It's also important to realize that India is so diverse, and in every single community and economical status of society, there are different people with different skin tones. So just solely confining these roles designated for those of darker skin to those of the lower caste, of those who are economically impoverished, and not distributing the darker skin roles among different movies and different characters really does take away from the diversity that is in India. And I think it was important to not just stop at the way the colorism is portrayed in media, but then to go into a short deep dive on how colorism affects the people of India, because I think that's where we can see how insidious colorism can actually be. It is quite a unanimously agreed upon idea that the color of your skin greatly affects job prospects of marriage, relationships and opportunities, and personal confidence for people in India. One survey found that 70% of men believe that fair skin would give them an advantage at securing a job, getting a partner, or securing success in interviews. Women have reported that their confidence increases immensely by lightening their skin tone by just 2 shades. Even today, in several places of India, people with darker skin are associated with being dirty or members of lower status. I didn't actually know this, but before protests that stopped this setting on this website in the wake of the murder of George Floyd in 2020 and the Black Lives Matter movement, Shadi.com, which is a big Indian matchmaking website, actually had a filter for skin color preferences when looking for potential partners on the website. Now, this isn't maybe as dramatic, because when we look on dating sites or when we're actually looking for a partner in the wild, like, we probably indirectly filter out our preferences for people, but the fact that this was like a filter and setting on the site sort of gives you an idea of how important skin tone is in the matrimonial field in India, especially for women, how lighter skin is such an essential aspect of a good bride. A study done at the University of New Delhi found that dark-skinned men and women were consistently rated lower on marriage ads, and in this way and in several different ways, women and even men are still held back in the marriage world in implicit biases in in employment, especially in India, where marriage is, especially for women from economically impoverished backgrounds, marriage is such an economic currency. A lot of people get married as an economic decision and as a way to progress higher in society, for which reason wall that dark skin places on women from progressing in society and being able to marry higher up is something that generally sets them back. I feel like it would be amiss to discuss India's obsession with colorism without discussing Glow and Lovely. Skin whitening cosmetics, popularized by Dutch company HUL, are a multi-billion-dollar industry with major cosmetic companies like Dove, Nivea, Pond's, and Garnier selling products that claim to alter genes, suppress melanin. Skin whitening industry has been booming at a rate of 25% per year, with the sales for male skin whitening products also booming at a rate of 40% per year. In a study conducted by Neha Mishra, over 55% of women have admitted to using skin lightening creams very regularly. The target consumer profile for Glow and Lovely is the 18 and above age group. The bulk of users are of the age category 21 to 35. However, studies have shown that girls as young as 12 to 14 also use the skin lightening cream on a very regular basis. As of 2012, the brand Glow and Lovely occupied 80% of the skin lightening cream market in India and is one of the Hindustan Unilever's most successful cosmetic lines. The average Indian spends more money on fairness creams than Coca-Cola or tea. Glow and Lovely is mainly identified by its admittedly quite outrageous advertisements over the years, and its main target for these advertisements are middle to lower class, lower income groups, of whom 20 to 30% buy these skin lightening products over the counter through friends or other connections without even consulting a specialist and actually being educated about the long-term health effects these creams actually have. And this has been growing in popularity by the day because one's skin tone is tied so closely with beauty and confidence and opportunity. These advertisements and these companies really take advantage of Hindustan Unilever limited research claims that 90% of Indian women want to use whiteners because it is aspirational, like losing weight. A fair skin is like education, regarded as a social and economic step ups. And these adverts star very popular and well-loved actresses like Deepika Padukone or Priyanka Chopra, further appealing to the interests of a wider audience. Now, barring the obvious damages that the success of such skin lightening products has on the colorist attitudes of our country, also important to note just how harmful these are for the user of these products. The complete list of ingredients are undisclosed, but some studies have shown that these skin lightening products contain disrupted hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, which I'm not sure what that means, but that sounds pretty bad. And these contain several side effects, including crushing syndrome, adrenal insufficiency, diabetes, and hypertension. And most of these products also are rumored to contain harmful doses of mercury. They contain harmful chemicals that can cause dermatitis, chemical burns, and in several cases, the likelihood of skin cancer and melanoma. However, this doesn't stop these companies from constantly releasing new products and trying to reach new target demographic audiences. And every year we have new products. Alongside the general fairness cream, we also have other products like armpit lighteners and genital lighteners and fairness baby oil. Now, to think of the damages that the regular fairness facial cream has, it's kind of concerning to think of the damages that a genital lightener would have. Hindustan Unilever, the manufacturer of Fair & Lovely, under its cosmetic brand name Vaseline, also launched an application to make the skin of Facebook users look lighter in their profile pictures. Most of these companies are endorsed and collaborated with very famous Bollywood actors and actresses such as Shah Rukh Khan, Priyanka Chopra, Deepika Padukone, who are portrayed not only in video advertisements but also billboards, giving you an idea of just how popular this brand is. Despite its promotion of very colorist ideals, shun people of darker skin tone, and with darker skin tone give them the promise of fame, of beauty, of opportunity, and even better circumstances like better jobs and more money. So it's not strange that people watching these and people living in India would associate skin tone with not only beauty but just opportunity and privilege. Before we resume to the regularly broadcasted program, my experience with colorism, let me paint a picture. The year is 2013. I am roughly 6 or 7 years old. I'm looking in the mirror, looking at myself straight in the eyes and wishing that the shade of my skin was one shade lighter. Just one shade. One shade would be good enough. This was the inner dialogue that I had with myself nearly every single day. Because at this point of time, I believed that every single problem that I I had with my parents was directly tied to my skin tone, because that was what I was made to believe, where darker skin tone was what directly correlated to being ugly. I think that growing up, there's so many colorist messages, some explicit, some implicit, that you get every single day that really feed into your psyche and your ego and the way that you view yourself, especially when you're a kid and you're really impressionable and you soak up every single piece of information that you're being fed. So this came to me with comments from relatives, school friends, some teachers, some random strangers about my skin tone, or advising my mother to keep me out of the sun so I wouldn't get a tan. But this came in the form even of comments that adults around me made when discussing other women, where having fair skin was a compliment, rather where having darker skin was a takeaway, where they'd be like, oh yeah, she's really pretty, but she has darker skin tone. Where on the flip side would be, she's really pretty and she has fair skin, where the fair skin is an add-on, rather where the dark skin happens to be something that diminishes someone's beauty rather than adds to it. Once I started to grow up, I had a larger friend circle and I met more people who had darker skin, had the same skin tone as me, had skin tone that was even darker than me, and I looked at them and I realized that they were really pretty, or they were really beautiful, and they were and some of them were objectively agreed upon to be quite beautiful. They got attention from boys. They were, for most people, as quite beautiful. Maybe not because of their skin tone, but despite their skin tone, which is, for me at that point, was a massive step forward. Which is why I think representation matters so much, because just seeing my friends who I thought were pretty, who had the same skin tone as me, was enough for me to feel like my skin tone wasn't the problem and wasn't the issue that was holding me back from being happy with what I saw in front of me in the mirror. And obviously I have a lot of respect for people, especially women, who even have darker skin than me, because my skin tone is not even as dark considering the entire spectrum of how Indian skin tones go. So I have a lot of respect for people growing up in these sort of environments with darker skin tone, and I think films and media and the things that we're fed by it are so important and can definitely help you and impact the way that you view other people and especially yourself. Okay, so that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed, and this is my first video essay among hopefully many to come. So subscribe for more, definitely, if you like this content or if you're interested in sort of stuff like this. I'm thinking of doing a lot more like movie reviews and a lot of lighter topics as well. So yeah, definitely stick around if you find this interesting, and thank you for watching for so long, despite this probably not being the best edited and my arguments being a little bit incohesive. But thank you for watching, and I appreciate you being here, and I'll see you in the next video.